I'm back with another NewScott Skype interview. This is actually my second interview. It's actually my second interview today. And I'm here with someone you might not recognize right now, but about 11 years ago, he was a force to be reckoned with on the maritime wrestling scene. I'm here with Chris Madison. How you doing today, Chris?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm good. Were you a fan of professional wrestling growing up?
Wow, right into it.
Right into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I have that the same story that pretty much everybody says. Ever since I was probably about 5 years old, I was a big WWE fan. That was my go-to. I didn't really follow Maritime wrestling as a kid. I didn't even really follow WCW. Just a big WWE fan.
Who was your favorite wrestler growing up?
Um, Originally, I was kind of a Bret Hart fan. Then when Austin came around, I became an Austin fan. And then, in an unorthodox way, you never hear this answer, but I was a huge, huge Kane mark growing up.
Oh yeah, that's different. That's cool
Kane
though.
was like my go-to guy. Um, I don't know if it's just because I could relate to
You can
Kane in
relate
some
to
way,
Kane.
but yeah, he was definitely. I remember. I forget how old I was. You could probably do the math. But when Kane and X Pac were a tag team, I think I cried when X Pac turned heel on Kane.
That was 98 or 99. How old were you
Yeah,
then?
10.
10. All right. So in 2006, you got trained by Wildman Gary Williams. How did you? No, 2000, did you start in 2005? You were in the first class, right?
Yeah, it was October 2005.
October 2005, right. I was thinking you were in the second one there for some reason. October 2005, you got trained by Wildman Gary Williams. How did you find his wrestling school?
How did I like physically find it, or what did I think of it?
No, how did you find out there was a professional wrestling school being held in Spryfield?
At that time, I was like 15, and I had planned. I was still in high school, and I had planned that when I was finished high school, I was going to go down to North Andover, to the Chaotic Training Center. That's Killer Kowalski's school.
Yeah,
Like,
Jeff,
I
Tommy Osborne was supposed to go there too.
think Sandow came up there too. But anyway, so that was the plan to go down there. And then pretty much I was kind of like a dreamer kid, so I would spend a lot of time just, thinking about what I was going to do and thinking about when I was going to be a wrestler. So I would just kind of mingle online on forums. And I don't know if you remember that site, Obsessed with Wrestling.
Oh yeah, I think it's still up.
Is it? Yeah, there you go. So I used to, just hang out on that and fantasize and all that stuff. And I just remember I was typing in, I don't know, I was Googling wrestling school or something like that. And then that was probably August, and Gary's school had come up, and I pretty much shit my pants and went from there.
Did you know who he was before you went to his school?
I did. I had never gone, like I said, I wasn't like a big follower of Maritime Wrestling, so I had never gone to a real action show or anything like that. But I knew who the guys were. Just kind of. When did Real Action finish?
2002.
Then too. So probably like come 2003, 2004, as I got older, I started to go back and I knew people that went to Real Action Wrestling shows, and I kind of started learning about it. So I knew who Gary was, definitely.
And when you started training, what were your initial thoughts?
Uh,
Great.
I was
You were 16 years old then, right? Or 15?
I was 16.
Sixteen.
I was almost 17 because it was October. I turned 17 in December. So
Okay.
um, yeah, so I was a 16-year-old kid. So I mean, any 16-year-old kid that was a huge wrestling fan, I mean, it was a larger than life experience, that's for sure. Especially since I hadn't gone to any, like, I had gone to WWE live events and whatnot, but I had never gone to a real action show or anything. So to actually have the chance, first day that I showed up at the school, to see the ring, to be able to get in the ring, it was a big deal.
What was the hardest part of training for you? What was the hardest thing for you to catch on to, like bumping or body slams or something along those lines?
You could probably answer that question better than me. I don't remember. My cardio, my I I don't know.
I remember you
I
having
mean,
a rough time with was it belly to back suplex or uh, you kept smashing your head?
I smashed my head a lot, but I thought that was just.
I think it was a belly to back suplex, if I remember correctly. Um,
I'll believe you.
yeah, but there's
I
there's
mean,
nothing that stands out to you that was like hard, like running the ropes, taking a turnbuckle, like bumping, anything.
I mean, the whole experience is extremely difficult. I mean, it's not something that anybody can do, but I can't think of something specific that I struggled with. I mean, I just thought the whole experience is an uphill battle to train your body to do things that it's not supposed to do.
Right.
And then, I mean, more so, I think that like the athletics, like the people that are good at it, I think the real struggle comes in with honing the craft and becoming good at the storytelling and what wrestling is supposed to be. But the bumps itself, I don't think it took that long to catch on.
Your thoughts on the other people that you trained with? Jeff Young wrestled as Tommy Osborne. Aaron Haggerty wrestled as Hotshot Aaron
Yeah.
Haggerty. Did he use his real name?
I he I don't know.
And Ryan Durnford wrestled as Damian Spades. Your thoughts on those guys
As people,
as training associates?
it was good. I mean, it's definitely. I think me and Jeff were more alike than anybody. I think we really hit it off. But I mean, it was a good experience when we were training, the four of us.
Okay.
Next question.
Okay, what are your thoughts of them as people then?
uh, Good. I mean, I've. I mean, a lot of people could challenge me on this because I mean, I quit so long ago and I stopped wrestling, but I see that like there's a lot of people that from that era that are still active in some way, and I think I'm just the type of guy like one of the reasons why I stopped wrestling is because I'm like an all or nothing guy. If I can't do it well or I can't dedicate my time to it, I'm not going to do it half-assed because I think it's just I think when you're dealing with anything in life, wrestling especially, it's just kind of a slap in the face to the people that are taking it seriously. So I just think that if you're still kicking around after 10 years and you're not at least on the brink of success, then you're probably doing something wrong. Anyways, we'll rant on. We'll continue that conversation as we go through the interview.
Okay.
I forget the question.
You had your first match in January of 2006. Is that right?
Yes.
It was for a tag team match for IHW. It was you and Jeff against Spades and Aaron. Your thoughts on that match? Or your thoughts first. Your thoughts on IHW giving you the opportunity to have your first match.
Yeah, no, I was definitely very appreciative of that. Like I said, it was a dream come true, so I couldn't be more thankful for the opportunity. The IHW guys always treated me with a lot of respect. The match itself, I mean, what can I say? It was a great experience. I don't think we did it the right way. I mean, it was pretty much move for move. We had practiced the whole match before actually doing it, which, sure. But the experience itself was great. I mean, I look back on it probably every year, and I'll watch it, and I'll just kind of remember. It's kind of like a nostalgic feeling of how great of a moment. It's just like when you're a kid growing up, like a lot of people that say I'm going to be a wrestler or anything. I mean, they don't actually see those ideas come to fruition. So to be that kid and to finally just be in a ring, even if it's just in front of 50 people, it was definitely a big moment, and it felt good.
You continued to work for IHW for about a year after that. Is that right? For all of 2006 ish.
Yeah, and some of 2000. Well, wait, no, that was the end of two. That was the beginning of 2006, wasn't it?
What? Where you started?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You and Ozzy had a match in December of 2006, and I don't remember much after that.
Neither do I. We'll say that was
Okay. What were your thoughts on the matches you had with IHW throughout that year?
It was good. I mean, it's I didn't have a lot of matches. Like even looking back, like my career, I mean, the brief time where I was wrestling, I didn't have that many matches, but I definitely think that I was a go-getter, and you can see that like in my IHW matches, like I always improved like between every match. So I mean, they gave me lots of opportunity. I really enjoyed my matches with Jeff or Tommy Osborne. I think we did a good job, and you can really
Yeah,
you can definitely see the improvement between our first match when we showed up in IHW and the last match that we did.
definitely. I agree 100%. That last match between you and Jeff was really good for where either one of you were. I mean, Jeff had a bit more experience because he toured with Grand Prix that summer, but for both of where you guys were at that point, that match was outstanding. I thought so anyway. Um,
Thank you.
Grand Prix during the summer of 2006 started back up full time again for that summer. Did you try and get booked?
Um, the first leg of the tour, no. I don't think I did. I'm trying to remember. I remember. I definitely. I mean, I just said I was a go-getter, but at the same time, life skills weren't really there yet as a kid. So it was like I didn't even think to like send things in or like resumes. Like I don't even think I was working when I first started training. But once I realized, kind of like you have to go get things. I don't remember it was the first leg of the tour, or the second leg of the tour, but I know that I followed Grand Prix around and talked to Emil repeatedly. I even ran the music at one show. I forget what else, but he finally did agree. It was in St. John, New Brunswick. He did put me in a battle royal after I hounded him repeatedly.
Was that the only time you worked for Grand Prix?
Yeah, it was.
How did the battle royal go?
um,
Who else was in it?
it's a pretty good story. Jeff was in it. I can almost remember. So we had Jeff, so Tommy Osborne. Chad Dick was in it. Jeff Dupree, Cuban Assassin, Junior, whatever.
Yeah.
Ryan Storm was in there as Spider-Man. There's a couple like backyarder guys. I forget who else, but I remember Emil finally agreed that he put me in the battle royal, and he said, I can't do a good impression, so I'm not going to try. But he told me I was going out. I was going out first, and I was like, yeah, sure. And once we're in there, I remember Chad Dick got a hold of me, and he proceeded to. I wish there was videotape of it. He beat the shit out of me for a long time. And then he was like, when are you supposed to go out? And I was like, first. And I remember he said something along the lines of too bad. And he ended up keeping, I was final 5. So like the only like order in which people were actually booked to go out that it was planned was first, which was me. And then the final 4. The rest was kind of just a wing it. But I remember I was in there with Spider-Man, Cuban Assassin, Jeff Dupree, Chad Dick, and me. And then he finally decided to throw me out.
I'm going to assume Jeff Dupree won that battle royal.
I believe you're right, yeah.
I once saw him eliminate Spider-Man and Duke McIsaac at the same time to win the battle royal. I mean, it's Spider-Man. All right. After your match with Jeff in IHW in December 2006, in early 2007, you heard that Wrestling Reality was starting up. They signed a deal with the Fight Network. What were your thoughts on that?
Oh, I thought it was great. I think it was a really exciting time for anybody that was involved in maritime wrestling. Because I think probably there was nothing ever like it, or at least for decades. But real action wrestling would have been like the next biggest thing happening in maritime wrestling, and now Wrestling Reality came along. So yeah, no, it was exciting.
Did you try to get booked on that tour?
I did.
Your thoughts on not getting booked on that tour? As a wrestler?
I mean, it was what it was. I mean, there was definitely some frustration. I mean, I think that objectively, Pete and all those guys knew what they were doing. I remember that because I was definitely trying hard to get booked. I think by this time I had put on almost 40 pounds on my frame from when I started. So the effort was definitely there. I think the only point that back then that I did get frustrated was seeing somebody like and I have no personal problems with Nick or Sidewinder or Nick Teeth or whatever he goes by, but I remember working my ass off and kind of seeing how that whole situation played out and being like, he definitely looks better than me, but I think that I could have done a better job for the product in the ring. I definitely would have been easier to manage. And I just put more work into it in that sense.
They did bring you on as security or something, is that right?
Yeah, I was kind of everything. I was so that was a great opportunity. I was very appreciative of that as well. Um, yeah, I was doing security. I was doing merch table stuff, just helping with the ring and whatnot. So I did get to go on the tour, which just being around the locker room and around all these guys and seeing how it all worked. That was definitely a great experience.
What did you learn the most from being on the road with guys like Brody Steele and Cowboy Mike Hughes?
Where did I learn the most?
So you're a pretty young guy, and at that time, and they had traveled the world
I'm
more than
still pretty
once.
young. Say that again.
I
Sorry.
said you were a pretty young guy at that time, wanting to learn. You were only in wrestling for a little over a year. You're on tour with two guys that have traveled the world more than once, and James Mason was on that tour too. What did you learn? I know you didn't get into the ring and wrestle with them, but you must have like picked something up just from being in the locker room with them.
Well, I wasn't like literally in the locker room most of the time. I would say that what I can remember, I like looking back, I learned a whole bunch in the time that I was wrestling and afterwards and being around these guys, but I can't remember specifics really. Because I do remember like Pete and all these guys were like a fountain of information. So obviously I keep my ears open when I could, but with them running the show, the Wrestling Reality, they were quite busy, and usually I had like jobs to do, whether it be like do the merch or put this up. So it's like I didn't get a lot of one-on-one conversations with them. So it was kind of, I think the whole experience just kind of helped me with just understand how the wrestling business works to a certain degree. But I can't think of anything specific
Right.
that I was looking at.
Okay.
Just being away, I think too, like once again, like I think I was when it came to like conversation and learning things. I think I was a pretty mature kid. Like I could get along well socially, but in terms of life experience, I was very very immature. So just being on the road for a week or two or whatever it was, and just taking care of myself, that was for me at that age. That was actually a big thing as well.
Actually skipped over something here that I'm going to go back to. In the summer of 2006, in June of that year, I ran the third Maritime Cup with Sarah Dunsworth. What were your thoughts on when you heard that show was happening?
That was exciting. I remember being very excited. I think originally, how did you originally book it? There was supposed to be like a big 8-man tag or something like that.
Uh, the original book was that show where it was like the
Yeah,
Wildman Battle Royal.
yeah, it was Wildman Battle Royal, and then it changed to like an 8-man tag. I know where like Tony was in it, I was in it, Jeff was in it,
Yeah.
I think Swab was in it.
Uh,
Anyways, and then finally it changed to like I got like a 30-second match with Titus.
Yeah, I remember the original idea was for you to wrestle Gary. There was going to be the Wild Man Battle Royal, and you were going to win it, and the winner got a chance to wrestle Wildman Gary Williams. But
You never told me
but
this. I would remember this.
I definitely told you about it. You probably just
There's
don't
no way
remember.
you did.
Um,
I would remember that.
Okay,
I would
but
remember.
the original idea was there was a battle royal with just of the Wildman Academy students, and you were going to win it. And the prize for winning it was you got to wrestle your trainer in a match, but it wasn't announced when that match was going to be. And what was going to
Right.
happen was you were going to win the battle royal. You're going to be all excited to finally have a chance to wrestle your trainer and mentor, and then his music was going to hit immediately, and he was going to come out, and it was like the match was going to happen right now, and you were like going to shit your pants type thing. Do you know what I mean? That was the original idea, but then a whole bunch of stuff changed, and I ended up running the having to use some guys for the 12-man tournament I was doing, and you weren't originally booked for that, and because I had scratched the battle royal, you got unbooked from that, and then eventually I rebooked you against Titus. You guys had like 6 minutes and went like two, but he sure shot you far.
Didn't you cut it again? I don't know. Sorry,
What's
go ahead.
that? No, go ahead.
I said I thought you cut the time again, if I do remember correctly. That we started with 6 minutes.
I didn't cut
and
the
then,
time.
I feel
the
like
time was cut on you. I was out by the ring filming, and someone else cut the time on you guys. Someone else who had all right to cut the time on you guys, because there was a
yeah, I think it was
crap ton of matches on that show, right? Like I didn't know how I
yeah.
didn't know how to time anything back then, so I left. I gave him. Yeah, it was Pete. I gave Pete. I'm like, this
Yeah.
is what I think, and he was like, okay, we have to change some stuff because I didn't know how to time his show, right? It was like the second show I ever ran, or second or third show I ever ran, and we were actually filming it for TV at this point, right? So I didn't know how to time a show, and there was like 20 something guys there for this show, and a whole pile of matches, and we wanted to fit it all in.
It only went like 8 hours or something.
It was still like a 4-hour show, but that's because at intermission, John Dunsworth and Mr. Leahy from Trailer Park Boys and Randy were only supposed to go out for 45 minutes, or were only supposed to go out for 15 minutes, but they went out for 45 minutes instead. But I couldn't get mad at them because the crowd was like loving it, right? So I was like, take all the time you want. And the crowd was really into it. But yeah, you got squashed by Titus in the opening round of that show.
Which made sense. I can't complain. I was appreciative of the opportunity. It was not something to complain about.
How were your thoughts on you were in the locker room then with Brody Steele and Bobby Roode? Your thoughts on that?
That was awesome. It was, yeah, it was good. It was a good experience. I definitely, I screwed up that night. I think in that match, I believe I froze doing a simple 10 punch. But no, it was definitely it was another event. I mean, that was probably the biggest house that I was ever in front of. I mean, there was what, like 900 people there.
There was over 11 in total with comps. There was over 900 paid. Yeah. So back to 2007. After Wrestling Reality ended, what did you do wrestling wise?
You're gonna have to help me out. You were I don't remember. What did I do? I should have prepared. I didn't know what you were gonna ask me.
I
know, but you're trying to remember something that happened 10 years ago.
East Coast Pro Wrestling. When was the first time you worked for them? That was 2007.
I only worked for them once, and that was my last match ever.
That's my next question then. In September 2007, you worked for East Coast Pro Wrestling. You had a tag team match. It was you and Crystal Lynn Scott against Scott Savage and Purity Saint. What are your memories about that match? It's the second. It's my second favorite thing I've ever filmed.
What's the first?
I'll tell you after you tell this story.
So yeah, I mean, obviously there's me busting Crystal and Scott open.
How did you do that?
She still has the scar. Pretty much we had set up a spot where, so me and Krista were a tag team. Krista was in the corner. I come running in, to a near miss. I stop myself from running into my tag partner. And then Scott Savage comes from behind, gives me a drop kick to the back. One of the stiffest drop kicks I've probably ever experienced. Which caused my tooth to go driving into Krista's forehead.
And she got busted bad. But
still has the scar.
Props to her. She froze for like a second because I think she was like half out of it when you like knocked her, and then you could just see the blood just start to pour. But props to her. She didn't want to stop the match. You guys kept going, and I have this footage up online. I'll link it in this video. Of what do you remember of happening in the back after you bit her and you guys walked to the locker room?
I remember everybody being concerned, but looking back, it's like, I don't know, would we have been concerned if she wasn't a woman? But I mean, like, Chris is super tough. Like, she she pretty much got in the back and she was
Oh yeah,
fine.
she was
But
pumped.
there seemed to be a lot
In
of
that whole
panicking
video,
concern.
it's her being like super pumped.
Yeah, yeah, she's pumped and she's like, "Fuck off, guys, I'm fine." But everybody's, but yeah, no, I just remember the blood and it being kind of exciting. I mean, I felt bad. I felt bad for two reasons. I felt bad because in a very similar spot, I had also been in a spot with Tommy Osborne where he also got busted open. We actually both did. Very similar spot. I still blame it on the stiff drop kicks, but what was I saying?
You bit Jeff too.
Yeah, but I also felt bad too because we did cut the match short, and I was kind of enjoying because that was kind of it was my last match. I was doing like the nerd gimmick at the time, which I really enjoyed. That was only the second time that I had ever done it.
The first time I saw you do it, and I thought it was really good.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, no, it was finally because like up until that point, like I think that what I was doing when I would go to the ring is like I was just like being myself, which wasn't getting over. Which does like I wouldn't pay to see me, honestly. But by this time, it was like I was starting to get certain aspects of how to really interact with crowds and whatnot, especially the kids. There were lots of kids at that ECPW show. But anyways, I was doing the nerd gimmick, which was only the second time that I had done it. I had done it once as well at. You remember Steen ran a show, Fibbers Wrestling?
I wasn't there. That was the one where he had like a match every 3 hours or something.
I think that was the second time he did that.
That was the second one? Okay.
Yeah, I was only at one, and that's when I did the nerd gimmick. The nerd gimmick was actually Steen's idea. He was like, you know what, you should be a nerd. It was a good idea. Yeah, it was a good idea. But it worked. I don't remember where I was going with that story, but...
You were talking about just going to the ring and being yourself and how it wasn't working.
Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't working. So with that was kind of a change. Anyway, so yeah, with the match with Krista, I was disappointed because we cut the match really short. Although we spent so much time screwing around. Can I swear on this show?
Yes. It's not PG. It's rated NewScott.
Okay, all right, cool. But yeah, we spent so much time fucking around like on the outside and whatnot that I feel like that match was like fucking 12 minutes, but we hadn't even gotten to like the heat yet. Like there was like no cutoff. Like we pretty much went from like we had just gotten to the cutoff, going into like the heat. It was all fucking Scott Savage and Purity Saint beating us up, and then yeah, we cut it short. So the match probably could have went another. We would have had like a half-hour long match.
Do you remember Scott's dive at the start of that match? Where you weren't
there
to catch him?
Where he impromptu changed what he was doing.
I'm not blaming you. I'm just there was just a concrete floor and he hit it with his head.
I felt really bad. Yeah, pretty much he went to the top rope. He was going to jump off, and then he slipped off the top rope. Then he went to do a plancha over the top, changed his mind on that, and then he hit the ropes and did like a suicide dive or something like that. In which case I should have been there. I was not there, so I'm not blaming Scott completely. But I'll give him half the responsibility. But yeah, I remember him coming down. But the thing is, it wasn't until I saw the footage that I knew that he hit his head, because what happened was when he came down, I thought I caught him, and I remember I don't know if he was doing this sarcastically or if it was just Scott being a nice guy. When he landed on me, he thanked me for catching him. I remember that. So I don't know if he was like being like "fuck you" or it's just Scott being nice. And anyways, because I remember specifically, I was like, "Yeah, no problem." I roll over, "Yeah, no problem." And then I watched the footage back, and I'm like, "I didn't catch him."
And he no-sold it too. He popped right back up like nothing happened. You know what I mean? But he cracked that floor.
Do you think he got a concussion from that?
I don't really know, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did.
Neither, because it looked rough. It looked rough.
So that was your last match. Why was that your last match?
From there, it's the shitty thing for me is that I didn't know it was my last match. Life kind of just took off. What happened was I had planned on I ended up moving out to Calgary in, I think, November. So yeah, there was no more real shows going on at the time, and I ended up moving out to Calgary. And as I said earlier in this interview, when I was that age, I definitely was lacking some life skills and some maturity. So I remember I went out to Calgary and I was homesick and I was just in a rough spot. So I was there for, I think, 3 weeks. I had gone to, I forget the name of it. You'll probably know in Calgary. It's the gym. It's like a boxing gym where Calgary guys train at.
I don't know. Anyway.
Check that after. Anyway, session. I remember Teddy Hart was there and whatnot, and there's a bunch of Calgary guys.
Rats thing? No, that was way before that.
No, it's called like Bruno's Gym or something like that.
I do know what you're talking about now, and I can't think of the name.
Me neither. My memory, I feel really old. Yeah, I'm forgetting a lot of things. But yeah, I came out here, but I did the training session. I remember Teddy Hart was there and whatnot. And then I think just a couple days after that, I was just kind of in like a rough spot in life. I was second guessing myself. I wasn't sure what I was doing out there. Looking back in reality, like I said, it was just life and experience. I was still a kid, wasn't really ready to just hop into moving across the country. So I guess maybe I wasn't ready for the business life, whatever. So I ended up moving back like really quick. And I remember I felt kind of guilty, kind of ashamed at that point because I was still, when you're at that age where you really care what everybody thinks of you and whatnot. And I was just like, damn, I went out to Calgary, I blew it, and I kind of felt like it was the end of the world. And then I remember saying to myself, I'm just going to take a little bit of time off just to collect myself and, get my personal life in order, learn how to be an adult and be on my own. And then from there, what I ended up doing, I moved to Moncton. I ended up, I was kind of seeing at that point the mother of my daughter. This is pre-daughter, obviously. And then I ended up getting like a good job, which introduced me to like my sales career, which is what I've been doing sales for different companies ever since. And what ended up happening was I had planned to go back to wrestling, to just take some time off from it. And then life happened. I ended up having my daughter, and then it became like, okay, there's so many sacrifices. Going back to what I was saying earlier, there's so many sacrifices that you have to make in wrestling. I'm an all or nothing guy. It's like I don't want to put anything into it unless I'm going to put my all in. Because with all due respect, like there's a lot of guys in the Maritimes that I respect and that I like in wrestling, but there's a lot of them that I don't, and that's simply for the fact of it's like I think that if you're going to put yourself into something like that type of business, you should be going for it and not wasting other people's time. And I kind of got to a point where I every couple of years I still do now. I think about what, maybe I'll get back into it, but I don't want to get back into it if I don't have the time. I don't want to get back into it at the same time to sacrifice, I make good money doing what I'm doing. That helps my daughter. It helps me take care of my daughter. It helps me live a more comfortable life. So it comes down to balancing out, real life and the wrestling business.
Nice. If you could put one match on a DVD to show somebody what you did, what match would you choose of yours?
I balance that between there's the one with Tommy Osborne, but there's one that I'm kind of proud of that I don't think by any means it was great, but I think that in terms of crowd reaction and making it work for the fans, which is in the end what it's all about, is my match that I had with Purity Saint at the.
Yeah, I can't believe I forgot about that. Let's talk about that. I booked another show, this time with Peter Smith, Rick Doyle, Trash Canyon, and Sarah Dunsworth again, 2 months after the Maritime Cup. I wanted you on that card simply because of what happened to you at the first one. You didn't really get a chance to do anything. And no one else wanted you on the card, but they wanted Purity Saint on the card. And I'm like, the only person Purity Saint is going to be able to wrestle, that's going to be able to get her through it, is Chris Madison. And they were like, no, 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 we want. This just wasn't just Pete, Rick, and Sarah. Sarah had nothing to do with the wrestling part of it anyway. Pete and Rick didn't really know who you were. It was everyone else that was like, no, he shouldn't be on it. This, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, no. I went to Pete and Rick. I'm like, this is the guy you need to have if Purity Saint is going to have a match. He will lose to her too. He will have no problem putting her over. I didn't know that at this point, but I was going to make you do it one way or the other. I was like, this is your chance to like prove it to them, right? And they were like, Pete and Rick were like, okay, we trust your judgment. And so what were your thoughts on how everything happened, how it played out, and leading up to it?
Yeah, I remember you kind of telling me this stuff too. I definitely appreciate on your part the effort put forward to give me the opportunity. I think that match, going back to, I don't even know why we're having this interview because I didn't really have a career, but in my whole career, in all of my matches, that match stands out. It's probably my favorite. It was the first time that I was ever a heel. It was the first time that I think that I really became comfortable with what I was doing in the ring. And I remember putting together like the whole match myself. I mean,
and that's what she needed anyway. At that time. She was.
Yeah, exactly. And I just remember the crowd being really, really into it, like more than anything else that I'd ever done. I think it was Tony that even told me after the match that besides like the main event, like the crowd was like eating up like what you guys were doing. And it was really simple too. I mean, it was a really simple match. There was no complexity.
The slap and how everyone reacted for that. I mean, that was money. Like, that was really, really good. That was one of the happiest moments after a match ended that I ever had, like, doing anything in wrestling, because I put so much into trying to get that match out there, and I knew you could do it, and that after you guys actually went out there and did it, I was so happy and so proud. Like, it was great. I couldn't have been happier. I mean, happy and proud for you guys that you guys got to have your moment that night.
Yeah, definitely appreciate it. It was really proud for me too, because I even remember like pretty much Pete had told us before the match. It was, I think it was probably like a week before the match. He pretty much said, I want you guys to both start the match off as faces. Chris, you do something heelish to get the crowd to turn on you. And then I want the finish to be you motion like you're going to go for a wild driver, and Purity's going to roll you up for the 1, 2, 3. And that's the direction that we were given for the match. So I took what he said, and I was like, okay, I'm going to make everything work around that. And I did. And I remember when I got in the back, Pete said to me, he looked at me and Crystal, and he said, for what that was, he said that couldn't have been any better.
1,000%. Yeah.
And that was the biggest. I mean, coming from Pete, I mean, that was definitely. And like I said, I mean, I think that if you're in the wrestling business or any business, really, you should be, to a certain degree, looking for that approval and good feedback and criticism from people above you. But on top of that, me being so young, I was looking for approval in general anyway. And I just remember that was a moment where I was like, I felt really proud, and I felt like I had done something kind of, not trying to take away from Crystal, but I felt like I had done it on my own in a sense, just because I know how much I put into that to make that work. So it was definitely a crowning moment in my short-lived career.
I remember her crying afterwards and coming up and giving me a hug and saying thank you for like believing that you two could get it done. I had absolutely no doubt that you two could do it, but I also knew that you were the only person that would get her through it, right? There was nobody else, legitimately nobody else that could have got her through that match.
Yeah, and she trusted with me too, and I remember saying to her like, yeah, and we were really, really good friends at the time. And I remember like the slap, like when I came with the idea of the slap, I was like, "Can I slap you?" I was like, "You got to trust me. like this will work. Can I slap you?" And she was a go getter for stuff like this too. Like she wasn't scared or something like that. And she's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "I'm gonna slap you hard. Like this is a shoot. I'm slapping you." And she's like, "Give it a go." Anyway, she said that like her face after I did that, her face hurt for like days. It was like a Stephanie McMahon slap. That was serious
That's
business.
awesome. So you'd pick that match and the match with Ozzy at the IHW show?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like, I think the match with Ozzy is in front of like 50 people, and it's like, the crowd was as into it, I guess, as maybe 50 people can be. So in terms of like the actual like match itself, that was good, but the match with Crystal, the crowd was so into it, and there was an actual house there, so it's like, that's what it's all about. I mean, I think that we did our jobs, and even like I said, I got more good feedback on that match with Crystal than any other match I'd ever done. Like between what you just said and what Pete said, I remember Steen saying that his dad was a huge fan of the match because his dad was in the crowd, and that made Steen believe in me. So it was like that was the match that it did what wrestling matches are supposed to do. The fans were into it; they believed in it. When obviously, I mean, goes back to like suspending disbelief, which is what everybody says the wrestling business is about. It's like none of that, if you look at it objectively, is really believable. I mean, the way that we fought us fighting, but somehow the way that we put together the match, we were able to get all the fans in there to believe it just for that 10 minutes and make it something special.
No,
So.
I agree with that totally. So you were involved with Maritime Wrestling for just under 2 years. Um, Talk about some of your favorite moments and memories from those times.
Wow. That, I still, where do I start with this? I still try, I'm the type of guy, like, I try to enjoy life and try to make memories and whatnot. There's been a lot of great things that have happened to me since wrestling, career-wise, family-wise. My daughter, who's means more to me than anybody. But with the exception of that stuff, other than that, a good portion of my life memories come from under those 2 years. Like it felt like so much longer, and for me, that was kind of because just shortly after I started wrestling training, I dropped out of high school. I didn't get the typical high school experience. I didn't get the university experience. So for me, I wasn't the only sports team I was ever on as well was football, and I actually quit that right before I started wrestling so that I could wrestle because practices were supposed to be on the weekends, and so was wrestling training. So anyways, I didn't get all those experiences. So for me, wrestling was that. It's where I got to meet a whole bunch of like-minded people. And in this case, I was a kid and everybody around me was older, so I was learning life lessons. I was learning about wrestling. It was the first time, because I was always the oddball in school. I mean, I'm sure you can relate to this. Not many people like wrestling in school. There's a couple of them. You try to seek them out. You try to seek them out, but in general, people just don't care. So when I finally got into Maritime Wrestling, it's like here's a whole bunch of people that are passionate about the same thing that I am. I can be friends with them. I can talk to them about wrestling until I'm blue in the face, and they're good with it. I met a lot. I mean, between Gary, yourself, Jeff. I'm not going to name everybody because Troy. Anyways, there's a whole bunch of people that I still keep in contact with to a certain degree because I feel like, especially in Gary's school, Wildman Academy, there was definitely some bonds made. We had quite an interesting time. Like I said, I think a lot of us bonded, and it was kind of like a family atmosphere.
Definitely, it was a really special time for everybody that was there.
Yeah, we should do a reunion, by the way. Although I know there's some heat between some people, but suck it up.
A reunion of the wrestling school.
Yeah,
that would be interesting.
You don't have to have.
I don't think there's much heat between people now. At least not from the first couple of classes.
I think there's some discomforts. on certain sides that I talk to both sides, and I feel like there's some discount. Doesn't matter.
Oh, I know what you're talking about now. I think. It's such a long time ago, man. It's like
I agree. I agree.
it's legitimately 11 years ago. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm trying to even doing this interview. I'm having a hard time like remembering. Like we spent so much time together, and I'm trying to remember everything that we did. You know?
No, no.
Like I know I probably only asked like maybe 10 questions or so, but we were together all of the time. Like you traveled with us sometimes, like everything. You know?
Yeah, it was so big, and it was like, I mean, weekends at the training school and on the road for matches, and then just hanging out during the week. Like it was a crazy time. Your original question was about memory. What was your question?
Some of your favorite memories and moments of the 2 years.
Okay. So the first day I walked into Wildman Academy, Gary's school, that was a big one. There's so many little moments in between there where we all just, shot the shit. But first match, obviously, the matches that I mentioned before. I mean, I didn't have many matches, so most
How
of my
many matches did you have? Do you know?
23, I think.
How many?
3?
3 matches?
3.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say.
Yeah, like I didn't have many at all. I mean, and it sucks too
It
because
seems like so much more.
everybody says that. Like I was active I was always at the training school and whatnot, but back then, and this is something I'm envious too of, like the guys that I see now, like in the Maritimes, is that me and Jeff, Tommy Osborne, were talking about this recently. Like there wasn't that much action going on in that 2006.
Just Grand Prix.
Yeah, if you didn't make that, that was it.
Yep.
Now these guys seem to have options, but I wrestled where I could. Anyways, back to your question. First match. Jesus. I don't know. I don't know. The whole thing was memorable, but individual memories, I'm sure they'll come to me. You might have to edit this, and we'll just put them all in. I don't.
No, that's fine. We're getting towards the end anyway. Is there anything you'd like to say to anybody that might be watching this that may have helped you along the way, or anything like that?
You ask me questions like that, I'll probably get emotional. Yeah,
Let's make you cry.
it's possible.
The first guy to ever cry on a NewScott video interview. Let's do it.
If I cry, you have to edit it.
Nope.
No, I mean it all goes full circle to what I was saying earlier about like that was kind of like my coming of age experience. So I know that like if you're in wrestling and maritime wrestling, and if you're in the Wildman Academy, like you said, there were some special times. So I'm not saying that my times were more special, but it was definitely, I was so young that it definitely meant a lot to me, because I wasn't just learning about wrestling and making friends, but I was learning about life. Like it was like I was surrounded by people, some good role models, some fucking awful ones. But wrestling, it attracts lots of fuck ups. But no, I mean, between you, like I could name off everybody between fucking you, Jeff, Tony, Steen, Gary, Kathy, Crystal, Krista, Troy. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. Anyways, and then like the people in the business, like Pete, I wasn't, that main group is who I was closest with, but I mean, it was just, it was a huge impact on my life. And like, I don't know, like, although I'm not wrestling now and I don't have anything to do with wrestling, who I am as a person since those times, like I don't know where I would have been if it wasn't for that time in my life. Like I consider myself somewhat successful in a real life, in a sense that I'm happy. I have a great relationship with my daughter. I have a girlfriend that I'm happy with. I have a great relationship with my daughter's mother. I have a great job. I have lots of friends. And it's like, because of that time in wrestling, although it wasn't the wrestling itself, that time kind of molded my personality and who I am now, which has led to a shit ton of more opportunities. So that's pretty much where it is. So to anybody, I mean, people know who they are. I mean, you said, is there anything I want to say to anybody? Thanks. I definitely appreciate it. So I hope that I had a mark on somebody as much as all those people did on me. And I'm gonna stop talking before it gets emotional because that's next question.
Is is there any chance that there will be a return of Chris Madison to wrestling in general or Maritime wrestling? 'Cause
Uh,
you live in Edmonton now or Calgary?
I'm
Calgary.
in Calgary for the next month, and then I'm actually moving back to the Maritimes for May 1st. Um, so if you're close to like you, I probably talk to you and like Jeff and probably Troy more than most people. About and every couple of years, I'll usually say to somebody, "I'm coming back. I'm gonna start wrestling again." And it's like I ranted on about earlier. It's like I don't want to commit to something if I'm not gonna go at it wholeheartedly. So I definitely I let myself go out of shape for like a couple years. So I'm back in the gym pretty hard. I wouldn't rule it out, but just because I don't want to, for all the people that are in maritime wrestling, I don't want to slap them in the face. I don't want to, anything I do, I don't want to put half-assed effort. So there's the possibility, that I'd like to come back for some matches and give it another go. I mean, I'm just, sometimes I feel like I'm really old, but then I realize that I'm still
You're like 20, 25 or 26 now?
27. You're close.
27? All right.
But I always consider it. So I mean, right now I wouldn't be able to go in terms of my cardio. It just wouldn't happen. I'm working on that, but I wouldn't rule it out. So there's always the possibility for my one fan out there that remembers who I am.
It's me.
Yeah, it's you and my mom.
Your mom was good people. I'd like to thank you for taking the time out to do this interview with me. I really appreciate the time of going back and reliving some old memories from those days. And now that you're moving back you said in May, we can definitely go out for breakfast or something because real men hang out in the morning.
Do they ever?
Is that too sweet?
Too sweet.
Let's do it.
Okay, we better.
It didn't do it. Okay, hold on.
No,
Gotta
there's
start
a
that
delay. I'm trying to do it.
Oh, well, pull it back. Do it again. Too sweet.
Right.
There we go. Boom.